Hi, welcome to Intersolar 2011. We have here Philippe Lalonde, the Vice President of Worldwide Marketing and Product Management at Enecsys. Welcome.
Thank you.
So we'll start by asking you to describe what is Enecsys. What does it do?
We're a microinverter company for the residential and small commercial markets in the solar space.
And what's a microinverter?
Microinverter is a disruptive technology that replaces string inverters, essentially, that does power conversions from the panel all the way down to the grid. And we've created a small module, essentially a small inverter on each one of the modules. And we have a software, smart monitoring software that goes along with it.
What are the advantages of microinverters versus the central or string inverters?
Yeah, the principal one is that the architecture is completely different. So instead of having a bigger box, a central inverter in your garage, for instance, you have a small inverter on each one of the modules. So it allows for us to have separate MPPT, which maximizes the energy yield for the whole system. So if you have shading or different tilts, etc., it allows to compensate for that and maximize the energy.
For those who don't know what MPPT is, could you explain what that
Maximum
means?
power tracking, essentially. So what it does is that, again, if you have a string inverter, you have a string of several modules on your roof. So if one of them is shaded, the whole string goes down to the lowest common denominator in terms of performance. So what this allows is that if one module is shaded, for instance, this one may go down, but the rest of the modules in the string is maximized and keeps their optimal performance.
Now, I've heard that obviously you know about the criticism of microinverters being that you have so many more pieces of hardware that you might have to replace down the road, or that shading could be an issue, but may not be so widespread that microinverters would be a better solution. What's your response to that? Yeah,
in terms of one point of failure versus several, if that's where you're going to, absolutely. So that's definitely a place that's there. But the point is that the architecture, the way it's designed, the power electronics in the microinverters are very reliable. So in our case, for instance, we use no electrolytic capacitors, which means there's no liquid in the roof. It's likely going to use, we're trying to match the warranty, essentially, and the life expectancy of the modules on the roof. So 25 years is a typical life expectancy of the modules, and these power electronics are designed for that. That's a difference versus a string inverter, which typically has a 10 to 15-year lifespan. So no replacement, essentially.
Right. Now, you mentioned you're tackling the residential and light commercial market. Is that where you like to stay, or do you expect to scale up to the large commercial, maybe the utility scale?
Sure. In my opinion, there's no reason why you can't go up to larger commercial and utility markets with the microinverters. The reality is there's two things. One is you have to start somewhere, right, and learn about that particular place. And the current architecture and topology of the product, if you want, is designed specifically for those applications. Can we scale up eventually? Absolutely. The other piece of the equation is the new product, so economies of scale comes into play, and as the economies of scale kicks in and we reduce the cost of these products, then we can go play in the larger installations.
Any forecasts on when you might enter the larger commercial and even utility scale market?
It's, in my opinion, it will likely take a couple of years before we get there.
A couple more years?
Yeah.
Okay. What about the technology roadmap? I know many microinverter developers say their products are already to mid-90s, maybe 90-95% efficiency. So where do you go from there?
Right. So the product roadmap has a lot of different elements to it, but in terms of efficiency or peak efficiency with the new products we just announced at the beginning of this show a couple of days ago, we have 96% peak efficiency. So that's in line, actually it's very close to what string inverters are, but we have additional energy harvest out of the system. So when you're looking at the levelized cost of electricity over the lifetime of the product, there's some advantages there. We're cost competitive from that perspective. But regards to the product roadmap, the end game is the AC module, right? It's the smart module where you integrate the electronics, the power electronics, into the module. So we're eliminating the J-box and incorporating that into it. So in order to do that, we need to reduce the footprint of the microinverter, make it lighter, fewer components inside, solid state, more ASICs. Those are more or less some of the key metrics that we track in terms of new product development roadmap.
So that when you have the integrated module, the overall module and balance of system costs will be lower. Is that the idea? Okay.
Yes.
But what about the efficiency gains? I mean, is it literally going up to 99%? Kind of roadmap that we're talking about here?
Yeah, so string inverters are not there either, right? So
Right.
at the end of the day, there's always a loss along the way, but definitely as we move forward and the technology gets better and better, obviously there's increase. Right now it seems like every new generation of microinverters, you get approximately about 1% gain in efficiency.
I know Enecsys is a UK company, and you just really entering the North American market only recently. What do you think the difference is between the two markets, the European versus the North American?
Sure, that's a very good question. So in North America, the microinverter technology is, I think, pretty well or broadly accepted as a technology. It's been around for 2-3 years in North America, and people understand, the installers, distributors, the end customers understand what that's about for the most part. In Europe, it's a relatively novel technology, so they're still comparing with string inverters. And in Europe, typically speaking, our customers are a little bit more conservative, and they take a little longer to adopt new technologies.
And
so slightly different approach to the market.
So you should see a greater sales, faster ramp up then for the North American operations?
Yeah, no, I do think so, and I think the other parts of it is that there's going to be a certain amount of partnerships that are going to be established. We were talking about AC modules, for instance, as partner roadmap. So the channel and the execution on how you go to market is going to be critical.
Who are your partners in the AC module arena?
So we haven't announced any yet. We're working on standards with other people and some of our competitors as well. We're participating in these standards, and we're also talking to module manufacturers to design essentially products together.
Are the module manufacturers working with mostly from Asia, Japan, or China, or are you working mostly with European module manufacturers?
It's actually all. Pretty much all module manufacturers today are trying to figure out how do we get into the AC module game. So they are talking to microinverters developers just like ourselves. When
will we see a integrated module with Enecsys microinverters in the market?
That's a good question. I think there's two steps to that. There's a true AC module that doesn't have any J-box or junction box in it. That doesn't exist today as a true AC module. There's a few examples of what I call a light AC module, where you still have your JC, you have a mechanical interface where you plug in the microinverter that connects to the junction box that obviously comes with the module. Those exist today. We will likely have something out there shortly down the line. The true AC module, it's just my opinion. There's definitely some technical challenges there. In my opinion, it's 12 to 24 months away.
24 months away. I believe there are some other folks who already announced the true AC module launch, right? Or
it all depends on people's definition of what that is, but there's definitely lots of people working on it, and which we believe is a good thing.
Now, is it going to be hard to convince installer to buy AC modules? Is it actually going to be easier because you have module manufacturers also on board?
Well, everybody can speculate around that, but our perspective is, at the end of the day, in North America, that's going to be a difference between North America and Europe. We think it's going to be have an easier adoption in North America. Typically, our customers adopt newer technologies faster in North America than our counterparts do in Europe. So it's going to be a longer road in Europe, but we certainly believe that that's the future of the technology anyway, so it's just a matter of time.
And since pricing is such a challenge right now for, I guess, when you compare microinverters to string or central inverters, could you talk about where's the pricing right now for microinverters? What kind of premium do you have to pay just on the strict per watt basis?
Yes, so on the pure watt basis, essentially, it's I mean, we'll take generic, right? So every site is different, every system is different. Or more inverters or less changes the price of the system. It's typically around 40 cents a watt for string inverters on residential applications in the mid-size system, and perhaps about 30 cents more for microinverters, 25 to 30 cents more. We're competitive with that, but the true metric is not really price per watt. It's LCOE, right? It's levelized cost of electricity or energy. And that's price per kilowatt hour. So over a 20-year system, life expectancy of a system, how much power are you generating? We're generating more power, and how much does that cost for that extra power? And everything else combined into it, no change of inverters at year 10 or 15 and so on and so forth, all plays into that calculation. And we believe that's a true metric. And if you look at that, we're very competitive with string inverters today.
Competitive being that you can do better, or is comparable to string inverter?
In terms of price.
In
Very
terms of price.
competitive in terms of price.
Okay. And in terms of actual, the power generation, is it more, right, over time than what the string inverters could deliver?
Yeah, so again, the main difference, the additional energy harvest is somewhere between 5 and 20%. It's very site specific, but that's typically where it seems to fall. Therefore, over a 20-year, you generate significantly more power. So when you look at the costs of the system, that is, of course, based on the energy that you're producing.
Great. Well, thank you so much for joining us today.
Well, thank you. We appreciate your time.